Hi, hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today I am very excited because we are starting our February reading vlog. So as you can see from the title or the thumbnail, this month we are going to do an author binge. I'm sure you've seen similar concepts like this before on social media where someone is just reading a ton of books by a specific author. That's essentially what I'm doing. Maybe you've done something like this inadvertently where you pick up an author and you really like their work and you just keep reading their work, and before you know it, you've gone through a good chunk of their backlog of work. So I thought about a few authors I could do this with. The first that came to my mind was Stephen Graham Jones, who's an author that I already know I love and enjoy, and I just want to read more of his work. But I thought this would be a better opportunity for an author that I've never read from before, so he was out. T. Kingfisher, who I have read from before, but I've only read one of her books, and she writes like a ton of stuff, and I thought to maybe do something like this with her horror work. But eventually I decided, because it is February, it is also Black History Month, I decided to pick up P. Djeli Clark's work. I've been wanting to read this author for quite some time. He's very popular amongst speculative fiction lovers like I am. He writes a lot of stuff in a lot of different genres. I've been really interested in his work because I don't really see his work having a lot of comp titles. Every time I hear a synopsis of his work, I think that sounds so unique and so different. So I have 5 works from this author. Some of his more notable popular work. I do have The Black God's Drums. I also have Ring Shout, The Dead Cattail Assassins, The Haunting of Tram Car 15, and A Master of Djinn. So here are the books for this vlog. I think 5 works is perfect for a vlog. It's also February, so it's a shorter month, but these are also, as you can tell, shorter works. So I think everything worked out perfectly for this month. So before I start, let me know if you've ever done something like this before with an author, either like on purpose or like accidentally you just picked up a bunch of work from a specific author. So I think the first work that I'm going to read from this author is The Black God's Drums. I think this is the shortest work. It's all bent because I got it off of thrift books, but I think this is the shortest work overall. So I believe this is like steampunky, and our main character has some sort of like African god like in her or speaks through her. I'm not quite sure. So I'm gonna get into this and start the vlog, but thanks for stopping by, and I hope you enjoy this little project. So I have a reading update. I actually really like this angle, this setup. If only there was more lighting, because my window is like over here, but you're this way. Anyway, sorry. I do have a reading update. I am about 44 pages into this. It hasn't been that long since the last clip. It's 44 pages, and the book is like 110, I think, like 109. I really liked the setup of this. I think writing short works is incredibly hard. One of my goals for this year is to read more shorter works. And something that is very obvious when you pick up shorter work, especially in a speculative genre, is that setting up the world is really hard without it being super info dumpy, but you also need to get to the story quickly. Also, sorry if you hear snoring, I have a pug. It's really hard to really set up that world in a way that feels natural, but you also need to get to the story, like you need to get to the plot, because you only have so much to work with, and the author does it so well without it being super info dumpy. And the information that you're getting about this world and how it works and how it's set up is so like natural, because our character, who's grown up in this world, she knows how it works. She doesn't need to like refresh herself and be like, oh yeah, like the confederacy still exists in this world. Like she doesn't have to tell herself that. She like knows it in the back of her head, but we need to know that. So the way that the author is giving us that information is so well done. I did not know it was an alternate history, alternate universe. In this world, it seems that there was kind of like a draw or like a treaty between the Union and the Confederacy, the Confederate States of America, whatever. It seems like a bunch of countries stepped in. There's like the Free Isles, which I'm assuming is like the Caribbean countries, and I'm assuming they're free. And then you also have Haiti, who is independent because they had their Haitian Revolution, and then obviously the Union, and you have the Confederacy. But it seems like Britain and France stepped in and basically made New Orleans like a neutral ground. So we see a bunch of people of different like nations, or I guess factions, come together in New Orleans to party, because it's also Mardi Gras. One really cool way that the author is giving us information, again, this world building, is the way that characters interact with each other. The way that Union soldiers are looking at like Confederate soldiers, and they can't really do anything because they're on neutral ground. Or the way that one of the characters here is from one of the free isles, one of the free islands, and how she is interacting with like the what is like the fractured United States. Really cool, really interesting setting. I love an alternate history. I love history in general. I got a bachelor's in history, so this is like really cool way to interact with something that has already like we have our own history, but the way that authors kind of can play with history in a fiction sense is so cool. I really love that. But yeah, I'm really enjoying it. We're following a fairly young character who has a probably a bit more mature for her age, but like it makes sense for the character. Not a very long book. You can probably get through this in like one sitting. I am obviously updating you, so not one sitting, but close enough. Not much time has passed since my last update. Again, very short. I really enjoyed this. I thought this was so cool and like such a good example of what you could do with short works. The lighting is super off, sorry. This is such a good example of what you could do with short works, and it is probably, I would assume, one of the more difficult things to do with writing. Yeah, I think I'm gonna land on a 4.5 with this one. A 5-star for me is just like a vibe. To get to that 5-star, you just gotta have that vibe. But this is like technically, I feel like super amazing, super good. One thing about the writing that I never mentioned is that because this takes place in New Orleans, the dialect is written into the actual dialect of the book, so the accents and stuff like that is going to be written into this. So if you have like a hard time for that, this might not be the book for you, but it's like not hard to like understand what's going on. Like if you understand English, then you're fine with this. In my last update, I didn't really talk about the goddess that exists in our main character. Our main character Creeper has a African goddess in Orisha named Oya like living through her, and I didn't really touch on it in the last clip because I didn't really get it until then, but it's like a piece of her exists in our main character Creeper. I'm sure this goddess kind of exists in other places as well, but she kind of lives through her, and that gives her a certain amount of like magic abilities only when Oya the goddess like wants to act through her. So I thought that was really cool. I really liked a shared body, a shared mind with someone, especially like a goddess. I think that's such a cool concept that I like to read more from. I talked about how well this author set up this world in such a short amount of time, but the way that I feel like I know these characters in such a short amount of time is also something to commend. There's these like really cool nuns in this book that I think are so funny. There's this like feral child that we see that's also really like cool, and like I know these characters and they're so distinct, and again such a short amount of time and such a short amount of pages. I think one of the themes that I enjoyed, and well, I mean enjoyed is like not maybe the best word, but I think a theme that I thought was well done, and I really like the way that the author touched on it, is this kind of like shared trauma, obviously because slavery still exists, and every person of African descent, whether they're Black Americans or Haitians or people of like the free isles or whatever, they all have that connection, right? And one aspect that I liked was this almost like maternal trauma that Oya has for the enslavement of her people. She kind of not feels guilty because it's not her fault, but she feels like it feels almost like she has a responsibility, and we don't get too much of that because she's not our main character. We don't actually really see much from Oya's perspective, but in the few times that we do get it, especially towards the end, it feels like maternal. But there's hints of that to add on to this theme that I've seen from before and read from before. I would love to see more from this world. I thought the characters were great. I think the setup's already there and it's so interesting, and it's also like steampunky. There's like airships and stuff. Oh, I realized I didn't even tell you the plot of this. I just kept talking. So this book is about our main character Creeper, who is a very young girl. She's a thief, and she gets wind of some information that some Confederates kidnapped the scientist, and the scientist has access to the Black God's drums, which is a weapon, a tool that is supposed to call upon another African god. His name is Shango. And when you call upon him and his thunder, like it creates like massive storms that still exists in some way. It was used in Haiti to get their revolution, and apparently Haiti still gets like a ton of thunderstorms, and it's been years since it's been used, so it's not good, and I'm assuming the Confederates wanted to use it on the Union, and our main characters need to stop that from happening. But that's essentially the plot. I didn't want to go too much into it because it's a shorter work, but so good. 4.5 stars. As for what I'm going to read next, I think I'm going to pick up the Dead Cattail Assassins. I believe we follow an assassin and she accepts a contract, and if she cannot complete that contract, she herself is on the chopping block. That's all I really know. It's a little bit longer than the previous book, but again, still not that long. But before I do that, I'm probably gonna go make a yogurt bowl because I'm starving, but I'll be back soon. So this is not the best angle, but it's what we have to work with. I'm about 59 pages into the Dead Cattail's Assassins. This one's really fun too. Just like the last book, the author does a really good job of setting up like the scene, the setting, what magic does or does not exist, or science or whatever. Characters are also already like so well fleshed out. We have a good grasp on like who they are, their humor. One thing I really like about this is like just the lightness of this. I haven't like cracked up or anything, like I'm not laughing out loud, but I do like the humorous vibe of this, and the dialogue is really believable and natural. Sometimes in books the dialogue is just so audience focused, like it's made for the audience to like understand and get information, and it's too like Marvel one-liners sometimes, but this one's pretty. I do like the dialogue here. This plot, so we follow a character who is an assassin, and she's part of like an assassin's group, like a little guild, and they have 3 rules. I believe it's every contract that they accept has to be like justifiable. You can't just like have someone killed. You can only kill the person that you contracted or you've been contracted to kill. You can't just like start killing random people, and you have to carry it out like once you accept that job. And our main character is undead. She's died, but she like made a deal with the like patriarch or the matriarch of assassins. So when she died, she came back to life, and she's now an assassin, but she doesn't remember her history. That's a part of her being resurrected. She doesn't have any memories of who she was. All she knows, she doesn't even know her name. All she knows is what her life has been since she's like become undead. So she accepts a job specifically given to her. Someone contracted her to kill someone. It's anonymous. And when she goes to kill this person, she finds out that the person that she's meant to kill, like it triggers a memory. She's like, I know your face. I'm not supposed to, but I know your face from when I was still like alive. And that's pretty much the story. I don't want to get more into it because it would be like spoiler territory, but such a good start. I think this author is just so good at establishing what he needs to establish in like a short page count. A lot of authors struggle with that, even in like larger, like standard novel length books. Something about this reads kind of like Venetian, but also Mediterranean, because it's takes place in a port town. So you do get like a lot of different cultures mixing, and I can kind of see the influences, like different cultures, mostly in the like North African, Middle East region. But it also feels like Venice because it's like a watery town and there's like gondoliers and stuff. Really cool setting. It kind of reminds me like of a similar vibe of Mask of Mirrors by that writing duo. I forgot what they're called. It also takes place during a festival. I don't know if that's something that this author likes, when there's like a party going on, but there's also like people doing bad stuff and assassins and doing jobs while everyone else is like partying, since the last book took place during Mardi Gras. This blog is going really well. I don't foresee myself disliking anything by this author. It could happen, but I doubt it. I'm said this before, but I'm a pretty easy reader to please. Like it's hard for me to like hate a book, but it's also hard for me to be like impressed with a book. So a lot of my reads come between like a 3 to a 4. Yeah, that's my update, but I'll come back later when I finish or if I have something interesting to talk about. Finished the Dead Cattail Assassins. My god, like this is so good. And this is the thing about reading really good authors who are really good at their work, is that everyone else starts to kind of like flop in comparison. This was so well described, and I think that's like my favorite part of this author so far, is how well they do at creating this world. As I was reading this, especially towards the end, I was like, damn, like this could be like a really good like HBO mini series, because they have the budget, but this could be really fun to watch on the big screen because it was so detailed, but also the way that the author wrote, it kind of really added to like the vibe. Like this is so fun. I mentioned before that there's like a festival going on in this story, and the festival is inspired, or it's dedicated to this like legend that had happened in this port city like a long time ago, like centuries ago, I guess. And even that was so well described. Like the story that we are reading, well described, and then there's like a folktale within the story that's also incredibly like well done and well written. Like this is really good. What can I say that isn't just like blowing smoke? Not that it's not deserved. One thing that this author does in this one as well as last one is kind of like ground gods or goddesses. We had that in Black God's Drums, which is what I was talking about with like Oya and the trauma that she shares with like her people. It like humanizes her a little bit. And then in this one we have the like deity of assassins, but also she's also like the deity of like culinary skills, because she's like a knife goddess or something, which I thought was funny. That's another thing. This is actually kind of funny. Sometimes authors try to make me laugh or try to like create like humorous vibes, and it just like doesn't land. This was actually kind of funny. Our goddess here, no spoilers, but when we get to experience a bit more from her, there's a little bit of humanization going on, which I always love. I always like seeing god characters, deities, whatever, not just be like omniscient and all-powerful and they know everything and they're amazing and wonderful. I don't like that. It's very like Christian coded, you know? I guess if I was gonna be picky and criticize something, but I don't really feel the need to criticize something, but if I was, I would say that there was just like a little bit of like, if I think really hard, not plot holes, but maybe like some conveniences to make the story work. But I don't care. I really enjoyed this. I marked it down as 4 stars on my journal and Goodreads and stuff, but like I would love to reread this more so than the last one. Not that anything was wrong with the last one. I gave the last one a higher score than this one, or higher rating than this one, but I would like to reread this one because it was just so fun and so like entertaining, and it was like kind of heisty and humorous, and the characters are so like, ugh, it's so good. And again, like these characters, some of these characters only appear for like 5 pages, and he does a good job at like describing them. And like I feel like I can see him. I feel like I could even like cast them with like an actor or whatever. Really good. I like the ending. One thing I really appreciated is that because our main character is an assassin, there is a moment in the story where someone asks our character like, how are you so okay with just like killing people for money? Like morally, like does that not bother you? And like, yes, in a real world I would have moral questions about a person like that, but this is fantasy, you know what I mean? Like people do like fucked up shit in fantasy worlds, and it's only a problem when like women do it. Again, without spoilers, like how the author kind of just like kept the character as they are and they're completely fine with what they do. Someone's gonna do it, and at least our main character is like a bit more, has a little bit more morals than your average assassin mercenary for hire or whatever. I just really don't like when characters, especially female characters, stop being assassins or like give up their powers or whatever, most of the time for men, or because they like morally like are guilt tripped into like being better or whatever, but then there's still like other people going around being like morally questionable. I don't like that. So for my next read, I'm probably gonna dive into Ring Shout. This is probably the author's like most known, most well-liked work. I've never heard like a bad thing about this book at all. This is about, I believe, a woman, an individual who is hunting clansmen because they're either possessed by demons, or clansmen are just inherently demonic, horrible people, and they disguise themselves. The demons disguise themselves as clansmen, which is not a very good disguise because they're both demons. I'm not sure like where the demon part comes in, but essentially clans people are demons, and I'm all about that. That sounds super fun. So this is my next read. I hope I enjoy it. I don't think I'm gonna dislike anything from this author. Okay, so I did something bad and I finished the entire book without giving you an update. I normally don't like to do that, but I felt like while reading this book, it was something that I needed to read in full before I gave my thoughts. It felt a little too like preemptive to talk about this without getting like everything, the whole big picture, because I do think that overall this one is the book that really wanted to hit the themes like on the head with a hammer, with a boulder. Like, the author really wanted to get his point across. And I will say, I know this is a topic of discussion for other authors like R.F. Kuang and stuff. Depending on the context of the book, I don't mind if the author is very like on the nose and not very subtle with what he's trying to say. I think because so much of this is around the Black experience, everything from the slave trade to like Jim Crow, it's very obvious how horrible that was. The themes being like a bit on the nose, it's like, how can they not be when this was so evidently something terrible that happened in human history. So I in general don't mind it in this context. I can't speak for R.F. Kuang because I haven't read any of her books, but back to this. Like I said before, this book is about demon KKK members. I think their title is something like Grand Wizard or whatever the fuck they call themselves, but one of the KKK leads, heads, whatever, decided to start this like summoning ceremony using like the hatred from The Birth of a Nation, that film, to like bring over demons from a different dimension. I don't think they're demons in like the Christian sense. I think it's like a different like demonic realm that we're dealing with. And you have KKK members turning into demons, and these demons feeding off the hate that the KKK members like already like naturally had in themselves. And I think that was really important that the author emphasized. And again, this was very like on the nose, but it's okay. For me, it's fine in this context that hate was already there. These demons did not make white people any more hateful than they already were. These people were horrid to begin with, and these demons just like took advantage of that. And I think that was something that the author also wanted to like put in, that there are bad agents who I do think that some people in our society don't actually give a shit that much about race relations. They don't. I mean, maybe this is me being an optimist in a weird way, but I genuinely think that there are some people that just stoke the flames of like race relations, hatred, and all that kind of stuff for their own benefit. They actually don't care about anyone other than themselves. They don't care about their fellow white brethren or Christian brethren or whatever the fuck they claim to care about. They don't. They just care for themselves, and they just use like the hatred that's already there to fuel their own agenda. I think that's what the demon is supposed to represent here. We follow a group of characters. Our main character, her name is, I think it's Maurice. She is a total badass, first of all, and her and other people kind of kill these demonic KKK members who, the gruesome depictions throughout this entire book were so intense. The way that the demon KKK members look like, or what I think they look like, horrible. There's this other demonic guy with like mouths all over it, so gross, but the descriptions were so well done. So our main character is a total badass, and this entire book felt like a season finale of like a really cool like southern Buffy episode, I guess. Did I mention it takes place in the 1920s? So like after World War I, we're still in the Jim Crow era South, and the horror of the supernatural entities is there, as well as like horror of like real world like anti-blackness in this setting. Something else that the author emphasized towards the end was this very astute observation that the hatred that people have for certain groups, minority groups, is so not foundational at all. Like the fact that you can pick up your dislike for Black people in this case and just transfer it to someone else should tell you that your hatred is stupid and makes no sense. I remember when I was young, if we want to relate real world and book together, when I was young, the people who were threatening our good moral family values were gay men, and the ethnic group number one, as far as I can remember, were Arabs, Muslims. Those were the biggest targets. Not to say that other people weren't targeted. There's always hate crimes going around for different like ethnic groups, minority groups, but those were like target number one. Nowadays, I would say it's probably trans people who are allegedly threatening our family values, and drag queens, and immigrants, Latino immigrants. If you didn't know, I'm Mexican American, and it sucks. It really, really bothers me. I'm gonna try not to get frustrated and like cry, but I hate it so bad. it sucks even more when like it seems like half of the ICE agents out there are also Latino. There's always been a kind of like holier than thou hierarchy within the Latino community. Those who were born here and came here the right way versus those who aren't, and that's a whole other conversation. That justification, I'm poor, the immigrants are ruining our community, blah blah blah, that excuse has been used on Jewish people, Irish people, Italian like people, Black people, Mexicans, Arabs. Like the fact that that is just being thrown at every single ethnic group should be like a wake-up call to like, maybe it's not everyone else, maybe there's someone else that we haven't pointed a finger to. And I think that's was pretty evident towards the end. If you've read this, you know what I'm talking about. Like I said before, I think the thematic elements were pretty like apparent and overt, but it's kind of hard for them not to be when this period in human history was so obviously horrible. It's kind of hard to be subtle when it's like hate crimes and stuff. One element that I thought was really interesting, and I say this with all of his books that I've read, is that there's always something more to explore with his other books. In this one, there's another speculative element added in. I don't want to spoil anything because it's kind of like a cool reveal, but there's these other things introduced that gave me like Hellraiser vibes, almost like a different dimensional space. I can't go more into detail without spoiling, but if you've read this, you know. And I thought that that was also like a really interesting concept, another interesting path to look into if the author ever wanted to like keep writing in this world. I thought that was really cool, and I wanted to know more about them as like a Hellraiser fan. I haven't seen all the Hellraiser films, but I've read the book and I've watched like 2 of the films. This whole book felt very Hellraiser vibes, dimensional beings and stuff like that. I think I'm gonna give it like I'm stuck between like a 4 and a 4.5. I feel like to call it square I should do 4.25, but I very rarely do 0.25 ratings, but I feel like 4 is too low for this book. But it again emotionally doesn't feel like a 5. 5s are purely vibes, so I'm gonna sit on the rating for this one, but I don't know, I might give it a 4.25. Oh, I forgot to mention, I think, that our main character has this really like cool, like supernatural, multi-dimensional like sword thing is like full, like made of smoke, and it's like fueled by like the anger and the pain of everyone who's like suffered in like the African diaspora. And I personally, that's like one of my favorite like micro tropes, is like a super badass fantasy weapon. I think they're so cool, and our main character has one, and I love it. I know this book is not necessarily, I mean, it's sad in the content, but it's not like sad, heart-wrenching in the way that like something like A Little Life is sad. But I do tear up more often in books than in real life, and there's one moment towards the end where a certain character came out, and I felt like a little tear come down my face, because I love happy reunions. Well, it was kind of sad, but it was like, it was happy in that they had a reunion. I can't say without spoiling, but I do tear up easily in books, and there was a moment here where I did tear up a little bit, which I always like. I like having that emotional reaction in books, whether it be like anger, frustration, like in this book, or like sadness. And yeah, bittersweet endings. So that's my update for Ring Shout. The only books I have left are The Haunting of Tram Car 15 and A Master of Djinn. I do know that these take place in the same universe, and I did look up the Goodreads reading order. I know that there's other stories, other like shorter works, novelettes, novellas before this one, but I'm only gonna read this one. I do think there's a Dead Djinn in Cairo, I think is the other one, and then there's a smaller like novelette that you can probably read online, but I'm gonna start with this one, and I hope it gives me a good foundation to get into this one, background information and stuff like that. I don't know what I'll get from this, but I believe both of these take place in Egypt, and they're kind of like detective paranormal mystery series, which is like my like hyper specific like niche that I love. Historical, mystery, paranormal, supernatural elements, or fantastical elements. That's like my favorite like triple threat. So that's what I'm gonna read next, this one first, and then I'll come back and update you with like thoughts and stuff. I imagine like this is gonna be my review for like this first book. Well paced, good world building, cool characters. I want to read more. Place your bets. So I'll be back. So, quick update. I just finished filming a TikTok, so I thought I would update you while I looked somewhat presentable before I go back into hermit mode to read. But I did get up to about 56 pages in The Haunting of Tram Car 15. I like this. Not surprisingly, I do really like this. I think it has a lot of elements that I love in books. It is a historical setting, which I love. It seems to be a mostly kind of like buddy cop detective mystery. Our main characters are trying to solve this like haunting of a tram car. The world is so cool. Like I knew that there'd be like a really cool like paranormal supernatural element here as well. It's also really witty in the way that mystery detective buddy cop series can be really witty. This takes place in 1912 Cairo, and it's another like alternate history kind of. It seems to be more like technologically advanced. Jinn are a really big part of this world. I think what had happened was that there was a man named Al Jahiz, I think, and he essentially opened portals into this world. P. Djeli Clark, trend alert, he really likes portals, but it seems that he opened some sort of like portal or like helped Jinn kind of influence or come into this world. I mean, supernatural magical stuff has always existed, it seems, but like more so now, and that helped Egypt become like a big like major international hub alongside like London and Paris. It sounds like there's like a lot of trade, and there's like these airships and obviously tram cars, and they talk about this transportation to get from here to like Johannesburg and stuff, you know, like it seems like a very like interconnected world, which was facilitated by the entrance of Jinn. But we're mostly following a mystery, which I really like when we have like a small scale plot. In this case, it's like a haunted tram car, but there's like a lot of movement going on in the background, changes in society. One thing that we're seeing right now is Egyptian women wanting the right to vote, and they're comparing it to the suffragette movement in London. I guess again, this is like a metaphor for systemic change, using the entrance of Jinn and like magic and stuff as like a facilitator. But I really love that. It's like one of my favorite kind of writing devices, having movement, large scale movement in the background while you're dealing with something kind of small scale, like a little haunted tram car. I do like how witty it is. Our main character is kind of like over it and like is rolling his eyes, but he has to have like a smile on his face because he's like a ministry worker, like a government worker, so he has to kind of, you know, be like a pencil pusher. Whoever did the cover for this book did an excellent job, because the way that the author is describing Cairo in this world, I feel like it's exactly like what the cover looks like. So if this vibe calls to you, you should definitely pick up at least this one. I do think that this is a good setup for this world because like I said, I'm going to be reading A Master of Djinn, and I did hear that that one thrusts you into the world a bit more and there's a lot of questions, but I'm hoping that this one really like sets the foundation for me. I do know that there's other shorter works like I mentioned before, but I'm hoping that this sets a good foundation for me to just jump into Master of Djinn after I finish this one. But I am enjoying this, and I'm about a third of the way through. It's only 140 pages, so I should finish this soon. Hopefully have this vlog done because I really want to work on the next vlog project, but I like to take a week off between vlog projects just so I don't get like content brain rotted, you know? So I finished The Haunting of Tram Car 15. I really like this and I'm giving it a 4-star, but it is a different 4-star than Ring Shout. I'm not sure what to give Ring Shout, so like at the moment I have it at a 4.25, which is fine, but this one was more fun, but not as like hard hitting. Like it's just like a fun little mystery to me, and while I enjoy that, and that's like my favorite type of novel where it's historical, it's like witty, paranormal, and it's a mystery, like that's like the perfect combination. That's literally what I want to read all the time. It's not like hard hitting enough for me in the way that like a Ring Shout or literally everything else that I've read so far from this author. But it's fun. Like this is definitely a series that I feel like the author could just keep like pumping out like novellas if he wanted to in this world. So we're following some agents, right, in this book from the Ministry of Alchemy, Enchantments, and Supernatural Entities. We're following an older agent who's like been working for the department for a while, but he has a new partner, like a rookie partner, and I adore the rookie partner. I think he was so funny, so sweet, but like very helpful in ways that our like main character did not expect. And it's giving like Spencer Reed vibes if you've ever seen Criminal Minds. Like he just like knows everything. Everyone seems to really like him. I found that really adorable. I did get hints of the other novella that I have not read, which was A Dead Djinn in Cairo. I think that's what it's called, the first novella, not the novelette, but the novella. And I think it follows a woman that is the main character of the next book that I'm going to read, which is A Master of Djinn. I think her name is Fatima. I think we saw her in this one, and it referenced her novella, which I would really like to read. I'm not going to read it for this vlog because I'm just going to go straight into this novel. But I do think that I have a good foundation for this world because of this. I think all the major questions and important need to know is found here, and I would imagine that's also like referenced in the novella as well. I do know that there's a novelette, I believe, like a really short one that you can just read online. It's like less than 100 pages. It's like 50, I want to say. I could be wrong. This is like the type of book that I would read like 20 of these if I could, in the way that people like devour like Murderbot, which I thought was totally fine. Like this is very me. Like this is like me coded. I don't know if it's like as like life-changing and I'm gonna like think about this for 50 years to come, but it's definitely a series that I would always like want on my shelves, something that I'm always in the mood to read. That means we have one book left, and I already showed it to you, but that's A Master of Djinn, and we're following another agent, and she seems really cool. She seems to be kind of like, I don't know if feminist is the right word because I don't know her beliefs, but she like wears like men's European outfits and like riding boots, like pants, like tailored jackets, and like a bowler hat, like the round ones. And she seems super cool and super beautiful. And I adore her, and I've only like really met her for like 5 pages, like, and I'm already like super into her. She sounds fantastic, and I believe she's investigating the murder of Brotherhood cult that worships or is trying to follow in the footsteps of the man who summoned Djinn into this world. And I think this Brotherhood gets like murdered or something, and she's going to investigate it. And it's a full-length novel. This is the only full-length novel of the vlog, but I'm having fun, and I'm interested to see if the author can keep up momentum throughout a full-length novel. Obviously, we know from my rambling that I think he's fantastic at short works. We'll see how he does with something like this. I think it's over or almost 400 pages. Yeah, this is 390 pages, so it's almost 400, much longer than his like 100-page novellas. So this is next on the agenda, and then I will come back when I have an update, then wrap up my thoughts on this, and then wrap up the vlog. I gotta go. I'm starting to feel sick because I demolished a plate of mozzarella sticks. So I do have a reading update. Is that better? A little bit. I do have a reading update. I'm about 160 pages into A Master of Djinn, so I'm about 40-ish% of the way through. I have a good idea of what I'm gonna get from this book, but to be honest, I kind of already had a feeling because this is just another book in this series. This is granted the novella or the novel, the full-length novel, not a novella, but I mean obviously I like it. I don't know if this is gonna be like such an eventful vlog because I had a feeling I would like everything that this author has written, and I do. I don't know if that's like interesting or it's like boring or whatever, but I mean, I as a fellow reader, like if you had a week where you read bad books, I feel like, oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. But if you had a week where you read mostly good books or great books, that's fantastic. So you should be happy for me. But like I said in when I first talked about this, we're following an agent named Fatma, and she, first of all, I love her. I adore her. She kind of dresses kind of like dandy with like suits and riding boots and like a bowler hat, and I think she sounds fantastic. I think she sounds so cool. And she's like so smart and witty, and she has like a super hot kind of on and off again girlfriend who has like goddess powers almost. Anyways, so she's investigating the mass murder of this like brotherhood who was worshiping this guy. In this world, obviously we had magic put into it by this one dude, and this brotherhood worships him, and they get murdered. They get completely roasted, which, like, bummer for them. It's something that I think the author's really emphasizing in this series, and I've seen it in the last book. I still need to read Fatma's original novella, which is a Dead Djinn in Cairo, I think is what it's called. But I think something that the author really wants to emphasize is this idea that Cairo has become so modern and is up there alongside major cities like London and Paris, but there's people still suffering, which you could probably find that also in like London and Paris, along with modernization, but also like the magic and the jinn, people still suffer. And antagonist of this book, the person who like killed all these other people, he's like, ayo, like they're using the teachings of al-Jahiz and all this kinds of stuff, and you're still suffering, and like obviously like don't kill people or burn them alive, but also like he makes some points. But yeah, that's pretty much it. What else do I like? This happened in the novella that I last read, but our main character in this one also gets a new partner. I guess that's something that her ministry or whatever wants, more partnerships, and her partner is very young and very eager to like learn from a fellow like woman agent, which I always like. Feminism is also brought up a bit here. I don't know what the world's take on in same-sex relationships. Like I said, Fatma has kind of like an on and off again like flirtation girlfriend with this other woman who sounds absolutely stunning. Like I mentioned in another clip, queerness just tends to be something that is just ever present in P. Djeli Clark's work, which love. Everything's going well. I feel like I should critique something. The chapters are too long. No, not really. They're actually pretty like decent sized. But usually for mysteries, I'm like used to like shorter chapters where each chapter is like really focusing on like one particular thing. Like if our main character has to go question a lord or something, the chapter is focused on that lord. But there's a lot of line breaks, so there's a lot of movement within each chapters, which is fine. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm just trying to fucking figure out something to critique this author on. I do like the wittiness of this, and we kind of saw some similar like tone with the humor in Dead Cattail Assassins. It feels very similar to like the wit in like the Veronica Speedwell series. That one's obviously a bit more like English people based, but it's very much like play on words. That's like my favorite type of humor. I don't love hijinks. I don't love insult comedy. Not that there's anything wrong with that if that's like your thing or whatever, but just like when someone's really smart with their words and is able to kind of like play with them and use them in multiple ways, I think that's something that I enjoy. Which I'm not super into astrology and stuff like that, but I do have heavy like Gemini placements, specifically Gemini Mercury, and so apparently like wit and like how well someone speaks, not in like a presenting way, but like how well someone uses their words is something that I find really it's supposed to be something that I'm super into, which I guess I kind of am. So far so good. I don't know if I have anything to update until I finish. It just depends on if something like catches my eye and I need to talk about it, but for the most part this is going well, and we'll see when I update again. So I am back to tell you that I did end up finishing a Master of Djinn. I think I'm going to give this one 4 stars, and I do actually have critiques this time. I'm not just like glazing this author, but obviously it's a 4 star, so I did really enjoy it. I think going into this I was mostly thinking about 2 things, which was getting more into this world, because I obviously didn't get enough of it reading The Haunting of Tram Car 15, but also I wanted to see how well this author would do in a like longer form book. Most of the stuff that he's published have been short works. I also know that he's also published like younger reader stuff, like middle grade stuff. I don't know anything much about those actually. I mostly know about his adult work, but I did really enjoy this. This was really fun. He had written in his acknowledgements that a big part of the motivation for this book is that people wanted to read more from this world, and I think that's basically what he delivered the best. Like I just get so much characters and groups and gangs and like these like different creatures that kind of come up, and like always there's always like a character or there's something in this novel that I'm like, oh, you could always expand on that. There's a couple characters, there's a couple like gangs, there's a couple like creatures that are like really interesting that I'd like to see more of. I'd like to see like a perspective from someone who's actually a djinn, because as far as I know we've only really seen perspectives from people who work at the ministry, agents essentially. But it's really fun. Like this is truly just like a like fun like detective mystery series with a really cool setting, all that kind of stuff. The biggest critiques, I guess, is that there was a lot of back and forth. If you're watching like a Law and Order episode, it would be like your detectives going back and forth between like the medical examiner and like a few suspects. Like they just keep going back and forth, and sometimes it felt like the momentum was kind of slowing down in those parts. But that's just like a mystery pacing problem, I guess. It kind of slowed down the story a bit. Personally, maybe because I do read a lot of mysteries and I watch a lot of mystery type content, it was easy for me to be like, oh, like I know who did this, maybe like 150 pages before the ending, which is quite a chunk of the novel. I kind of had to guess who it was, but I don't know if that's just because of me knowing mysteries. I personally don't mind guessing who the bad guy is before the story wraps up. A lot of people don't like that, like, oh, if I can guess who did it, then I'm not going to read the book. I don't care about that. I just want to see like the development of the story, why the person did what they did, and I can kind of like get the motive. Sure, why not? Compared to Tram Car 15, this one is better because I really like the main character. But yeah, I really enjoyed this like I thought I was. I saved this one for last because I thought this one's the most up my alley, but I don't know if I would put this as my favorite. But let me wrap up this vlog and we'll talk about rankings. I guess that would be fun. So obviously in this vlog I read 5 of P. Djeli Clark's work. If I were to rank these based off of like had the most interesting things to say, had the most unique concepts, the approach, the writing was like technically the best, this would be my ranking, with Ring Shout at the top, then The Black God's Drums, The Dead Cattail Assassins, Master of Djinn, and then The Haunting of Tram Car 15. I think The Haunting of Tram Car 15 just like reads like a standard little like quick mystery with like really cool elements that might keep you wanting to read more. But obviously I enjoyed all of these, and this isn't like a bad 5th place. If I was going to rank these based off of enjoyment, I think I would go with Dead Cattail Assassins, Master of Djinn, Black God's Drums, Haunting of Tram Car, and then Ring Shout. Not that Ring Shout isn't any good. Loved it, obviously. It's just not like enjoyable in the same way that something like Cattail Assassins is. If we were going off a star ranking, I would say Dead Cattail Assassins and Black God's Drums, I gave both of those 4.5 stars. Ring Shout, I'm super torn on because I think 4 stars is too low for Ring Shout, but it doesn't quite hit me like a 5-star or a 5.5 star. So maybe like 4.25, but I don't like doing half-star ratings. That's like already too much for me. So I have to sit on that one more because it doesn't just feel like 4 stars. And then Master of Djinn and Haunting of Tram Car are both 4 stars. But I mean, we're like splitting hairs here at this point. We're done reading P. Djeli Clark, at least for the moment, until he comes out with something else, or if I ever feel the need to read some of his more like younger work. I wish I had like a point to this other than this is something I've always wanted to do, and this is an author I've always wanted to read, so maybe I don't need like a point or a reason or a thesis or a hypothesis or whatever. I just really wanted to read this author, and I thought it'd be really fun to read a bunch of work from one person in one vlog. But let me know what you think. Let me know if you've read any of these books, if you've enjoyed them. I'm sure some people have because he's a very popular author, and a lot of his work gets rightfully praised. I know I gassed him up in this vlog, but yeah, let me know what you think. I'd like to hear anything you have to say down below in the comments. I will link my social medias down below, as well as some far more important links. Feel free to like, dislike, comment, or subscribe, or do neither. It's all cool with me. If you don't know what to say, just leave an emoji. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.